welcome to my channel. My name is Lisa Alastuey, and on this channel you will find a variety of inspirational and informational videos. If that sounds good to you and you haven't subscribed, please subscribe. Today it is my pleasure to introduce John Livia, who is the host of the Serious and Silliness Bodybuilding channel and also a former competing bodybuilder. Welcome, John.
Thank you. Thank you. Two things. First of all, I wore the shirt for you. It says Meathead.
Awesome. Love it.
And the other thing is, next time you interview like one of the, most famous bodybuilders in the world, make sure you have me on the next day. So next time you interview with Arnold Schwarzenegger, make sure I follow him.
Absolutely. 100%.
Thanks.
Yeah.
Thanks,
That was
Lisa,
just
for having
an awesome coincidence that he said yes right after you had agreed to come on here. So I really do appreciate you following Lee Priest. And for those that haven't seen that video, I will also link it down in the description box. It was a really good chat.
It's like being I am similar to the shortstop that followed Derek Jeter after he retired. Do you remember his name? The guy who followed Derek Jeter after he retired?
Sure.
Yeah,
No.
exactly.
They'll remember you. Don't worry. Don't worry. So I follow several different bodybuilding channels, including yours. And I find yours really fun and interesting. But I want to ask you about the name. Why did you name it Serious and Silliness Bodybuilding?
Yeah. So what happened was I have two channels. And originally it was Serious and Silliness, and then I broke it off into two channels. It was originally just Serious and Silliness. So I made it Serious and Silliness Outcasts, where I do more of an interview show, and then a Serious and Silliness Bodybuilding, where it's just hardcore bodybuilding. And Serious and Silliness is basically how, it's kind of like, if you know me, that's kind of how I live my life. I mean, there are times where you need to be funny and you need to laugh and you need to be silly. Not everything can be taken so serious. And then there are times, and there are particular, and if you watch my content, you'll see there are certain topics that I'll talk about that I'm extremely serious about, and I don't like to joke about. Oh, this is my dog. Sorry, as Jolene.
Oh, cute.
Yeah. And so I named it Serious and Silliness, and my logo is a half of Gladiator and a half of Court Jester, and it's put together.
Nice,
So
nice. And
that's
so
basically it.
So when we're talking like with bodybuilding world, there is definitely, like you said, some very serious topics that you can touch on, such as, there's bodybuilders that have died and the gear and, competition. But then there's also the silliness too, like about bodybuilding. What would you say is some of the silliness in bodybuilding?
Me. I don't think there's much silliness. I don't think there's much silliness in bodybuilding. I think they take themselves way too seriously. I think I think majority of bodybuilders enter bodybuilding for one of two reasons, right? Men, I'm talking about. The first reason is they either were into sports, like when I interviewed Guy Sesternino, he said he played football and then he liked lifting weights for football, and then he fell in love with lifting weights. Or option two, the guys lift the weights because they were very insecure, and it's more of like a psychological armor, if you will. So I don't think there's a lot of humor in bodybuilding, and that's kind of what I try to bring. It's no big deal to have some fun and crack jokes and so on and so forth, and take yourself so serious. I mean, and I have a rule where if you can't make fun of yourself, then you shouldn't be able to make fun of anybody. So I wear stupid shirts like this, like Meathead, right? But if you look behind me, I don't know if you could see, but I have 2 degrees. One's in psychology and one is a master's in business administration. So I wear this making fun of myself, but knowing I'm really not a meathead.
Well, I definitely appreciate the power of comedy. I've had a few comedians here on my channel that I've interviewed, and I definitely think, and it's very valuable. I think just, getting through life, we need to, like you said, laugh at ourselves, not take things too serious, because life is tough and you need humor.
Absolutely. And it's kind of a shame because, in the last year, I'll say comedy in general has kind of swung back to being edgy again. It's leaning in that direction again. But for a long time, it was really like everybody was so easily offended. It still is. And like, I'll poke the bear. I'll have guys on my show and I'll say something that I know is going to get a reaction, but that's going to be odd. Like, like, even though I think it's funny, I know they're going to be like, I had a show on muscular development for a short period of time, and I had on a panel show, and we were talking about, the best Mr. Olympias. And there was a Mr. Olympia, I forget his name. I don't remember his name, but we'll figure it out. Who was openly gay,
Bob
right? And
Briggs?
who? No. He wasn't
Oh.
Mr. Olympia. There was I forget his name. Actually, come on, Chris Dickerson. Sorry, got it.
Oh,
Chris
yeah.
Dickerson was an openly gay bodybuilder, I think in the early 80s. So we brought him up, during the Mr. Olympia topic. So I said, wasn't he I worded it like this, knowing the reaction I was going to get. I said, wasn't he one of those homosexuals? And the whole panel was silent. Like, they couldn't believe I said it. So I just kept going. I said, what did I say? What did I say? I said, if you look at his Wikipedia, it says it was the first openly gay bodybuilder. What did I say so wrong? And it was just, I know what I'm doing when I'm
Mhm.
poking the bear. And to me, it's like, it's not being so serious. I mean, it's no big deal,
Yes.
you
Yes.
know?
For sure, for sure. So just real quick before we move on, your channel includes things like interviews, you interview bodybuilders, you
Mhm.
talk about some of the latest bodybuilding news, some off topics as well. What else do you share like on your channel?
I do this thing that I like that hasn't blown up yet on my channel, where I do things that annoy me,
I love
you
that.
know?
So yes, that's one of my favorite
Okay.
things that you do, actually.
Oh,
Yeah.
all right, good. And it's just things that I see, whether it's in bodybuilding or in the gym or anything like that, that annoy the hell out of me. And I did one, I don't know if you saw it. One thing that really bothers me is when you go into the locker room, into the gym, why there has to be old men walking around naked. I don't understand that. I don't get it. I mean, even if you take a shower, you could have a towel around you or a robe. I don't, and I went off on 20 minutes on the guy, and I'm like, they're always out of shape. They're never really, manscaped, if you will. It's not nice to look at. And I'm like, I don't understand why and it's always a guy over 60. It's never the young guys walking around. It's always, so I, went off on topics of that. Then I do interviews. I do a contest coverage. I'm not as good as some of the others on contest coverage. They always get there before me,
Mhm.
but, um,
You do the
I do.
Anabolic Academy.
Anabolic Academy is when people send me questions
Mhm.
about bodybuilding or about fitness or whatever, and I answer the questions.
Mhm.
And then I talk about if there's some gossip. I call it the bodybuilding battle.
Yes, and they can just send you a message via email or put it onto Instagram and
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah,
they'll.
my Instagram is serious and silliness. Serious and silliness. My email is John_Livia at Yahoo, or my other one is Uncle John 1201 at Gmail. So they email me, or they send me Instagram posts. And where'd you go? Oh,
Oh,
there
right
you
here.
are.
Yeah. Can you see
Oh,
that?
okay. Yeah.
Yeah, so there you go. If y'all want to check out, follow him here on Instagram. And then of course you can always, find him on his YouTube channel as well.
Oh, thank you. That's very nice of you.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So do you,
I'm
Um,
absolutely terrible with names.
let me stop sharing this real quick. Okay.
Yeah, no problem.
So my last name's Basque. It's my grandfather was from the Basque country in Spain. So you
Okay.
have your Basque Spanish, your Basque French, and he was Basque Spanish. And so Alastuey is a Basque name. Yeah.
Oh, very nice. Okay.
I'm 1/4 Basque.
Oh, okay. All right.
Yeah.
I'm from Brooklyn.
Nice. I can't tell by the accent.
Yeah, that's one thing I got better than Lee Priest. My accent is better than his.
Yes,
He
yes.
might disagree, but
Okay, so let's talk a little bit about bodybuilding. So what got you interested in bodybuilding?
well, I'm an 80s baby. So if anybody who's Gen X,
Gen X.
yeah, exactly. Anybody who's Gen X knows what I'm talking about. I mean, everything was muscle, Hulk Hogan, Sylvester Stallone, Van Damme, Schwarzenegger was in every movie. Every guy wanted to be big and strong. It was kind of like um the peak of like powerlifting and bodybuilding. Lee Haney was Mr. Olympia, and then it was Dorian Yates. And you had professional wrestling on, and it was just a tremendous influence. And I just wanted to be, big and strong and whatnot. Plus, I had two older brothers that were significantly older than me. My oldest brother is 14 years older than me, so he was always bigger and strong. So I wanted to be like them, and I wanted to work out, and I wanted to, I was just. And it wasn't like I really started working out because I discovered girls, and I'm like, well, girls like guys that are in shape. because I was a chubby kid because I'm Italian, and everything revolves around food, right?
Pasta.
Yeah, and everything revolves around food. And then I remember, I just one of my brothers got me a chin up bar. The other one bought me a push up bar, and then finally, my oldest brother bought me a weight set for the basement. And then I just graduated. Then a friend of mine, when we were kids, he used to work at Ferrigno's gym. Lou Ferrigno had two gyms, one in Brooklyn and one in Staten Island. And my friend used to sneak me in because we were in high school, we didn't have any money. And I used to go there, and then he put in the computer that I had a membership so I could go for free, that kind of thing. And then then what happened
Hold on,
was
hold on. Did you get to see Lou Ferrigno?
no, he
Ah,
was just a
darn.
name. He's from the same neighborhood as me.
Yeah.
He's from the same neighborhood. I think his father was a cop from in Brooklyn, and but no, I never got to meet Lou Ferrigno or any of those guys, Schwarzenegger, any of those 70s bodybuilders. And then what happened was, there was a girl who was a national level bodybuilder, and she said to me one time, she goes, "Why don't you ever think of bodybuilding?" And I was like, well, I don't think I'm big enough, because I was never a really big guy. I'm like 5'8". I'm like, right now I'm like 200 pounds. I might have been 160 or 170 back then, but I always had a nice physique. So she's like, no, you don't have to be huge, I mean, and she made the comparison of Sean Ray to Dorian Yates, right? Sean Ray isn't a big guy, but he always a great bodybuilder. And then I started getting into the magazines and so on and so forth. And then I just fell in love with bodybuilding, and that was it. That was it.
So when did you, at what age were you like, I'm going to compete?
Well, that year, when that girl, it was 1999. I did the Mr. Staten Island. And yeah, I never got past an NPC level. Like, I never, as much as I love bodybuilding, I had to come to terms with the fact that I just wasn't as genetically gifted as a Lee Priest. I mean, did you see what Lee Priest looked like at 13 years old? I
Yes.
mean, he looked like me now. It was insane. You know what I mean? That guy was just destined to be a bodybuilder.
Right.
That's it. Right. I mean, some of these guys, they were just destined. That's it. And I was one of those guys that fell in love with bodybuilding because of the time period, and I loved everything about it. But then I just, had to come to terms with myself where I was like, I'm not that good. The most I ever weighed on stage was 181.
Mm.
Right. And I was like, I'd have to, at 5'8", I'd have to be, to be an open bodybuilder, I'd have to be 250 pounds. I was just, it wasn't going to happen. No matter what drugs I took, no matter how much I ate, I just knew it wasn't going to happen. So I just kind of came to terms with myself. I kind of always knew it. Right. But there was always like this little like voice in the back of my head, like, maybe if you try this, or maybe if you try that. And then finally I was like, this is getting ridiculous,
So let me take you back to Mr. Staten Island, the competition. What was that like?
It was in College of Staten Island. It was an NPC show. It wasn't a national qualifying. And it was basically a bunch of guys from the New York area. I remember Jason Arns was the guest poser. And then later on, he turned out to be a good friend of mine. He was on my show for quite a bit. And I remember Dave Palumbo was there, and that was the first time that I met Dave Palumbo. And then I'm a fan of Dave Palumbo till then. And it was just like, basically I think I was 100, and I don't even think I was I was a middleweight. I don't even think I was 170 pounds, and it was everything was first. I had people helping me. Nobody charged me any money, which was nice. Like that girl Cassie was helping me. Then I had Ronnie Brown helping me, who was Leon Brown's cousin. He was a bodybuilder himself. Leon Brown was a guy who competed with Schwarzenegger. He passed recently. And then I had this other guy, Brian O'Regan, who was helping me, and they all helped, with the diet and everything, because I didn't know what I was doing. And I actually wound up winning my class, and
What was your class? Your
middleweight
okay.
middleweight open. And then I had graduated, and then I kind of had a shift where I was like, okay, I need a career, right? I mean, I bodybuilding is great, but it's not a career. So I started trying to find myself as far as what I was going to make a living. And then I, I got married, I have a living, we bought a home in New Jersey, and so on and so forth. And then I went to the gym. I found a new gym, and then this guy, his name is Guy Del Corso. He actually passed recently, and he's same thing. Did you ever think of competing? Because and I was like, yeah, I did once before, and then that got me into it all over again. And then about 2 years later, I was like, all right, I'm not doing this anymore. This is ridiculous. I'm never going to make it. So we got it done.
So so you said it was ridiculous. Was it ridiculous for your time, your effort, your energy? Like what?
Everything. I look, I would only have been an open bodybuilder. I was never a fan of the physique, even to this day. They didn't have classic physique. It came out a year or two later, but even to this day, I'm not a huge fan of classic physique. I knew I didn't have the size. Okay. I knew I had the shape. Like I have a nice physique, right? I always kind of did, except when I was a kid, when I was chubby, right? But other than that, like once I started working out, I kind of always had a nice physique. So I had nice shape. Um, uh, the amount of food, the amount of money, the amount of drugs you had to take, the energy that turned the idea that I had to isolate for myself from my family and my wife and friends and so on and so forth. I just didn't think it was worth it. See, with somebody like Lee Priest that you had on, it's worth it for him. He was like, he shot to the top immediately, right? He turned pro and he was at the top of his class immediately. That was it. It was just one of the best in the world. And it was worth it for him, right? That was his career. Where, and I think a lot of people go through this. I think a lot of people are delusional. I think that the majority of people that are in bodybuilding aren't going to make it, but they just love it and they chase their passion, and they wind up, either being a high level amateur or a low level pro, and kind of still having to work and so on and so forth. And my attitude is, I am not going to put my energy into that when I could put my energy into having a career, building a life, and then I started the podcast, and that filled that void that I was missing in bodybuilding. Covering bodybuilding fills the void, and I'm much better at this than I am of actually bodybuilding.
Okay, so you don't miss like competing. You much prefer
No,
the
no, I
broadcast.
am much better. But I could be myself. I don't have to worry about saying things that somebody might disagree with.
Mhm.
I love doing it. I do this almost every night because I have another channel. So I almost 5 to 7 nights a week I'm on here doing it. Um, absolutely, there was not one part of me that wants to go on a diet and go back to the gym and go. Well, I go to the gym, but go on a diet and compete again and do posing. Plus, I'm 48 years old.
Right, right,
That's a young man's game too. So
right, right.
it really is. It's a young man's game. I mean,
So no regrets. You're glad you did it and you had the experience of what that's like to go through it.
yeah, I knew. Yeah, no, I don't have any regrets. I mean, it was really fun. It was really nice. I got to meet a lot of great people. But there comes a time where you got to come to a realization. You got to realize, okay, like this is, look, I don't care how many guitar lessons you take. You're not going to be Jimi Hendrix, right? And that's what I had to realize. I don't care how much weight I lift. I'm not going to be Kai Green. I'm not going to be Philly. That's not going to happen.
Yeah.
I'm not even going to turn pro. And I just knew it. And I'm not ashamed to say it. And I'm not making excuses. It was just that's my genetic limitation. That was it.
Yes. So there's several pro shows, several amateur shows. I mean, it's pretty big business from what I can tell, like
Yeah.
all of the people that are turning pro, the pro cards that are given. So, I mean, there is definitely an audience of people that want to participate and to do it. But like you said, only a small percentage is actually going to profit and make a career out of it. Most people,
Yeah.
it's like a hobby.
Yeah. The majority of the people that I have on my channel, like when I do muscle talk, I have on Phil Clayhar, I have on Dorian Haywood, I have on Luke, I forgot his last name, and I have on Bo Lewis. They're all professional bodybuilders. They all work full-time jobs because they're not the elite, they're second tier, third tier. I mean, and Phil made it to the Olympia. Phil won 2 shows last year, I think, and made it to the Olympia. And he's a full-time, personal trainer. Bo's a personal trainer. Dorian Haywood's a chiropractor. Luke is works on, I think he works on the LI double R, the Long Island Railroad. I'm pretty sure it's the Long Island Railroad. And that's just the trade. That's just the truth of the matter is, very few are going to be able to, make a living at just bodybuilding, right?
Right, right.
But they do, and the thing is, they give out pro cards like nobody's. If they had classic physique when I was competing, I probably could have turned pro in classic physique because I'm more fit for that. But and then I would have been just another pro with a pro card. that would have been it. It would have been,
So you mentioned earlier that you're not a fan of classic physique. Why not?
I was always a fan of the mass monsters. That was my generation. My generation was, you got to remember, like, if you're Gen X, I'm probably older than you, but the gyms that we were growing up in, there was only one reason to go to the gym, and that was to get big and strong. There was no MMA. I mean, you could take karate and stuff like that, but there was no MMA to get in shape. There was no CrossFit. There was no, hot yoga. There was nothing like that. You went to the gym to get big and strong. That was it. And all the gyms were these little hardcore gyms, right? That are almost gone now because of the major corporate gyms that put them out of business, just like everything else in this country, right? And so that's what everybody wanted to do. And when you got in the gym, it was a bunch of guys. And back then, the guys were really hyper masculine, and they wanted to outdo each other. And these guys were monsters. And I remember I used to go to this gym I used to go to Gold's Gym in Staten Island, and then I used to go to Powerhouse. No. Pumping Iron Gym in Staten Island. It's still there, actually. And the owner was a competitive bodybuilder, and these guys were monsters. I mean, they were just enormous. And of course, being a young dude, you wanted to be like that. So when I see when I see classic physique guys, I'm like, yeah, you would have been the biggest guy in the gym. You would have never, in my generation, you would have never, you would have never been a pro bodybuilder, right? You would have never even made it to a national level. But what happened was bodybuilding got smart, and they were like, well, let's incorporate people that think that let's incorporate the people that want to be in the gym and love bodybuilding, but think that they could make it, right? And they were like, okay, let's come out with physique, so you don't have to train legs, right? So, because there's a lot, legs is majority of people's problem is when they don't have good legs. So then you have all these people that compete, and they do men's physique, and there's 50 guys that have abs that think they could do men's physique, and then they came out with classic physique, and classic physique is just a very toned down bodybuilding. And to me, and I know I'm going to get shit for saying this because a lot of people are huge fans of classic physique, but to me, classic physique is like if you started an NBA with guys under 6 foot tall because they couldn't make the open NBA, and that was. And if you notice, a lot of the people use it as a stepping stone. Like they'll turn pro in 212, or they'll turn pro in not turn pro in 212, they'll turn pro in classic, and then they'll go to open if they're good enough, or they'll compete in 212 and then go to open if they're good enough, and that's just the truth of the matter. And it created the upside is the business that it created for bodybuilding is insane. If you ever go to an Arnold Classic Expo and an Olympia Expo, it is crazy the amount of people there, and they love classic physique, and they love the social media influencers, right?
Mm-hmm.
It's unreal that so they knew what they were doing, and so the amount of money that they're making now is incredible. The business of bodybuilding is making, right?
Right.
Making a lot of money. Unfortunately, the bodybuilders, still have to go out there and hustle. They have a lot of ways to make money, online training and so on and so forth, and whatever, blah blah blah. But and they actually just recently increased the prize money in the sport, but for a long time it really wasn't much money. So, and technically it really still is, because let's face it, I mean, the New York Pro, the number one guy, gets 30,000, right? It used to be 10, but when you come in fifth, you're going home with nothing, and you put all that work in, and
So you see like some 212s move up to open, but you don't see a lot of classic physiques moving up to open.
No, you mean you see it here and there. Like I think you see some classic physiques going into 212 because look, they just don't have the size,
Even like a C-bum could never do open.
I personally, I don't think so, but why would he want to? He's world famous. I mean, the guy is probably the most famous bodybuilder, if you will, on planet Earth. That's his niche. Why would you want to ruin it, Plus, I don't think he just had a kid. I mean, so I don't know how long he's gonna be competing. But that guy is a brand. He slaps his name on anything, and he's going to make a living. He's going to make money. That's he has his own energy drink now called Bum Energy. Do you really think he's there mixing? He's probably like, oh yeah, put my name on it, give me a percentage of it, and that's it.
Right.
So Yeah, I no, my opinion is I don't think I think the majority of classic physique guys can't be open guys. And also the open guys today are just they are just monsters. They're just insanely huge, bigger
Mhm.
than they've ever been before,
Mhm.
and it's not it's people look at that and go, that's not attainable. I can't look like that, and I think that's what drives them kind of to more classic. Plus, I think the generation is more. I think the millennial and the Gen Z generation is more into like the fitness thing and not really being huge and strong and like our generation was. Our generation was just, get in the gym and get big and that was it.
Mhm. So do you think in the open, we will see a lot more 300-pound,
Oh,
you know,
100%.
like
Absolutely.
across the board, top five all over 300 pounds?
If it keeps going the way it is, yeah, put 10 years from now, to 20 years from now, yeah, absolutely. I mean, uh, if you look at the guys, right, you got to look at, Derek Lunsford and a Hottie were 212 guys that were good enough to go into the open, but they're very short. But then you get past him and you got guys like Sampson and Andrew Jack and now you got Quentin Beastwood and you have Nick Walker. These guys are humongous human beings.
Mhm.
They're it's just insanely huge. You know, these guys weren't that big. I don't care what anybody says. These guys weren't that big, 20 years ago, and they
Mhm.
just weren't 30 years ago. Just not even close.
So how are they
So yeah,
getting big?
it's probably a combination of things. I think there's I think the training is better now. I think the drugs are a little bit different now. I think insulin has a lot to do with it. I think a lot of people are using more growth hormone and more insulin, which has a lot to do with it. I think um
Is it
I
more synthol?
well, yeah, Synthol's different. Synthol is more of a muscle enhancer. I think it comes down to the training, the nutrition, the eating, how you train, and what do you call it? And I think the drug use is
Mhm.
probably what's doing it. And I think in general, athletes get better and better with every generation,
Mm.
right? You kind of look at like that's why records every year are being broken and so on and so forth. You don't. And in bodybuilding, it's like no holds barred. There's no rules or regulations to get as big or as hard and as ripped as possible. So it's like a free for all in the open. Go ahead, and you see these guys just pushing the envelope and pushing the envelope and pushing the envelope, and they are freaks of nature.
I think Nick Walker is the freakiest to me.
Oh, he's insane. It's insane. And just seeing them in person, like I had Nick on my show once, and I met him once. And just seeing him in person, he looks like a building like that's in front of you. I
A
mean, it's just
block.
this, yeah, this huge person. I mean, Akeem Williams is another guy. Just enormous. It just, I don't care. Like, it's just guys weren't that big 30 years ago. Like go during the golden era
Right.
of the 90s when you had, Flex and you had Sean Ray and you had Lee Priest and Ronnie Coleman. You had Marcus Rule and you had Ronnie Coleman, but they were few and far between, right?
Mhm.
But today these guys are just they're at a whole new level.
Do you think that somebody with a physique like Nick Walker could be Mr. Olympia? Would they ever award it to him, you think?
Yeah, the problem is that the problem is that Nick Walker's problem is his shape, his structure. He has good structure, doesn't have great structure. What gets him in the top 5 every year is his size and his conditioning. He has so much muscle and he's just so shredded that
Mhm.
you can't deny him. But when you put him up against the Samson Dowda, or Derek Lunsford or Hottie, and then he exposes himself because those guys have beautiful shape. They have beautiful X frame and they have a small waist. I mean, Derek Lunsford's waist is, I mean, it's he's a special bodybuilder.
Mhm.
Derek is a special bodybuilder. If anybody's going to be dominant like a Ronnie Coleman, it's going to be him
Mhm.
because he's
Yeah,
flawless.
it's incredible. I saw pictures of him when he's starting off and he was a 212. I mean, he's small. And the fact that he's gotten so large,
Yeah.
it's and he's only like 5'5" or something. He's short.
Yeah. He's not a big guy. Yeah.
But what I learned with bodybuilding and about structure, he's got this really long clavicle that allows him to pack on the mass, and he's got
That's right.
really small hips. that gives him that small waist.
Yeah, he is genetically, he is a 1% of the 1% that it can maintain being Mr. Olympia. He is a genetic freak. I don't think, I mean, as good as Hottie is, um, Derek is very young and he keeps getting better. And he's in the phase where he's getting better and better. He's not on the downslope, right? Hottie's kind of at his peak. So I don't see how Derek loses unless we've never seen him come out of shape before. He's not inconsistent like that, so
at the Olympia, he had those like bubble bumps on his lats. What was that?
it's possible that it's synthol. It's possible that it was just an early injection. It could be either one. I think it's more probably an injection that he put in because he doesn't need synthol, right? He doesn't, let's face it. So it's probably an injection that he put in, or maybe his trainer put in, because I'm sure he can't reach himself, of whatever anabolic he injected, probably a little bit too soon before the show went on, and he had it. Sometimes it swells. It happens. It definitely happens, because to deny that they don't use anabolics, it's just foolish, right? So when you see those lumps or whatnot, yeah, it's probably what it is.
Do you think there's a conflict of interest when you are sharing the same coach? So Hottie,
Me personally, yes, I would never want to be in Derek's shoes, and I don't think that would annoy the shit out of me. That my primary competition is the guy that's trying to take my head off right behind me. I would never in a million years want my coach to be the same coach as that guy. Think about backstage. I mean, what do you, I want, if it were me, and maybe because we, like I said, maybe we're a different generation. If it were me, I would want me and my trainer versus them. That's it. That's what I would want.
yeah,
if he trained the number 10 guy, it wouldn't bother me so much, right?
yeah.
But the guy this close to me, that would bother the hell out of me. I'd be like,
yeah.
nah, I can't.
How does he stay so Switzerland neutral, with them?
I think Derek, I think Derek is the perfect athlete. And what I mean by that is I think he is the Michael Jordan of bodybuilding, where he's special as far as physically, but he's special as far as his personality and his ability to conduct himself properly. And I think
like a Haney.
yeah. Like a Lee Haney. But when I say Michael Jordan, it's kind of like Michael Jordan never said anything out of line, or he knew what to say, he knew what to do. And I think Derek has that ability, right? And I think he's just, and in that way, I think he's a special guy, because like I mean, I don't like when Hottie stormed off the stage because he came in second. Like, I don't blame him. I'd be pissed too. But Derek has that ability to basically, control himself and so on and so on, right? And I think that is, and he never says anything bad about anybody, right? Where, I wouldn't be able to do that. I wouldn't, just not me. I couldn't do that, right? But he is in a position where I think he understands. I think Derek is intelligent enough that he understands the position that he's in. And I think he understands that he's a very gifted athlete. And I think he understands that saying nothing is best for him in his situation, right?
Yes. We're definitely living in interesting times where we get to have, inside information and see, how things go down, like with Samson and Milos, and it was so public and on social media, where maybe in, previous generations of bodybuilders, that would be behind closed doors, that would be in confidence, nobody would know. But now it's just like, there's no privacy, no boundaries. It's like all out there for everybody to look at.
Yeah. Well, what's happening now because of social media is what has happened in sports forever, right? Back in the day, you would watch a football game and then you would listen to, Sports Center, or watch Sports Center the next day, and you got all the gossip and so on and so forth. And all those athletes were under the microscope, just as they are today. But now bodybuilding has caught up to that. Now they have to go through being under the spotlight because of social media, because social media is really the Sports Center of bodybuilding now, right? And so unfortunately, you can't do the Dorian Yates thing where you just go back home, disappear, and then come back. It's, it wouldn't work today. But I always say the trade-off is, if you want to be a famous bodybuilder, if you want to be a famous anything, the trade-off is you're going to have to give up some privacy, and maybe a lot of privacy. And if you're not cut out for it, then go do something else.
Mhm.
You know, go do something else, because and you could see a lot of these guys aren't cut out for it because they're very, very they're very, very
Emotional.
sensitive. Yeah. Like
Yeah.
and I Martin Fitzwater, who I think is a tremendous bodybuilder. He just won the Detroit Pro and he's doing the New York Pro. He got arrested last year for drugs. And when I found that, I immediately went on my laptop and I saw the arrest report and I saw his mugshot and I reported it, you know, and he blocked me from Instagram after that. Right. And it's like, but you have to realize that. And I didn't say anything bad about him. I actually said, we want you to get your shit together because we know you can be a great bodybuilder.
Mhm.
Right. But if you want to be a public figure, then these are the things you're going to have to deal with. Even me, even myself, putting myself out here on YouTube and talking and so on and so forth. I'm going to have to deal with people saying things about me and leaving terrible comments or emails or so on and so forth. And you just have to have thick skin. If you don't have thick skin, you can't handle it, then go do something else.
Mhm.
Really.
You know, like I would imagine that these bodybuilders, when they do a show, right, and then post competition, there's a come down, and I think we saw that a little bit with Samson after the Arnold, and when he made his emotional social media post. Like, you know, a lot of times I don't know if they're prepared for that come down post competition.
Yeah, yeah. Here's the thing. People, I'm going to put you in this category. People like you and me, I think, are aware of how to conduct ourselves in stressful situations, right? Certain things like owning up to something, or or times where you just don't respond at all, or staying off social media at certain times. I don't think the majority of people are that self-aware or know exactly what to do and how to conduct themselves so they appear better in public, especially when you're in a public and you're in the public eye. So when you see a bodybuilder that breaks down, or you see a bodybuilder that, you know, shuts down social media, or you see a bodybuilder that blocks you, or so on and so forth, I don't think at that time, I think they are letting their emotions get to them, and I think it's a bad idea. I think these guys need to learn how not, and believe me, there's plenty of them that know how to deal with, like Derek knows how to deal with it, right? I think a lot of these guys need to realize and learn how to deal with being such a public figure.
Mhm.
And I and you know, I'm a huge Samson fan, and I have a huge emotional attachment to Samson because Samson was the first elite bodybuilder to ever do my show. You know, and it was during COVID, and he was on my other channel, and I just reached out to him, and he's like, "Yeah, no problem." And he's been on my show like 2 or 3 times since then. So I'll always be, I'll always admire him for that, and I'll always be grateful that he did that. But sometimes you have to call a circle. And you know, the little breakdown that he had after the Arnold Classic he probably could have handled better. He probably could have handled, you know, blocking, you know, his relationship with Milos better, you know. But I don't think a lot of people can understand or realize that they have to learn how to conduct themselves a little bit better. And you don't even have to be in a public figure. I mean, just being at work, right? If I screw up at work and then the management comes over to me and goes, "What happened?" and I start blaming everybody else, I look like a fool. But if I say I messed up and I'll take whatever consequence it is, but it won't happen again, you have my word. I'm going to
Mhm.
get more respect that way, even in a day-to-day world. And it should be the same thing with these people that are in the public eye, and especially with bodybuilders. You say, that's it. Like Hadi never said anything about storming off stage, and he should have. He should have said, "Look, I was wrong,
Mhm.
right? I should have never conducted myself in that manner." But he never did. And
Mhm.
now it's starting to come out. I interviewed Sergio Oliva Jr. and he told me that, oh, he's a sore loser. Behind the scenes, he's throwing chairs and freaking out. And again, we didn't know that until he made it public and it became huge, right? And that's what I think. But I don't think it's just bodybuilders specifically. I think it's just people. The majority of people in general just don't know how to handle accountability.
Mhm.
And that might be a generational thing, or it might be just people in general.
They might need to be hiring some PR teams, you know, for at least like the upper elites that have such a spotlight on them.
Just call me. I'll tell you what to do. It's not difficult.
Yes, but it definitely adds to the drama. I mean, it draws people in to see what's going on, because I was really surprised at the amount of bodybuilding drama. It's like
Oh yeah.
it's like Real Housewives, it's
Yeah.
like the real bodybuilders,
Yeah.
drama.
Yeah. And what's funny is that the drama comes from the guys, not the girls. And it's like what and my I don't know if you saw this one, but when they increased the bodybuilding prize money, I did it, and we talked about
At
it.
Arnold,
And yeah, at
the
Arnold or in general,
500,000.
yeah, it's across the board, basically, right? The IFBB increased it across the board for the most part because I guess they got better sponsorships or something like that. And there were some female bodybuilders that came out, and I'm a fan of female bodybuilding, just so you know, because I'm a fan of bodybuilding. It's not a fetish thing. It's just that I'm a fan of bodybuilding in general,
Mhm.
right? So I was even female bodybuilders. Like I had interviewed Linda Murray
Mhm.
and a bunch of great female bodybuilders. Um, and they were complaining that they didn't get, an increase in their prize money. But that's because people aren't coming to see you. People are coming to see bodybuilding. So my attitude is because women in sports basically love to, and it's nothing wrong with that, right? They love to like kind of bring each other up together. Like we're gonna, there's this component of we're gonna do it together, and they all kind of hold hands. And if I win, everybody wins, right? And which is great, but that doesn't put eyes on the sport. So I said, do a Jersey Housewives thing and call the girl a bitch. Tell her you're going to sleep with her man, and I guarantee you'll get more eyes on her. I guarantee it because you just look at the Jersey Housewives. My wife doesn't miss an episode ever. She can't tell you one. She can't tell you one female bodybuilder though, and she can't.
Mhm.
And she knows bodybuilding because of me. Or she can't tell you one WNBA player, but she can tell you all about the Housewives.
Yeah.
You know.
Yeah,
So
that is one way to bring more attention to the sport. Take a playbook from Hollywood and how they, get their stars and talked about and so forth.
absolutely, it is what it is. But I fully understand, and I kind of feel I understand the girls because the girls, go through as much as the guys do, probably more so because it's not natural to have that much muscle on a woman's body. So they probably have to put more time and effort into it than a guy would
Mhm.
have to, right? And they do deserve their credit, but unfortunately, people want to see the guys. It's unfortunate, It's like comparing the NBA to the WNBA. It's just
Mhm.
not even close.
Well, let me ask your opinion since you brought up the women's bodybuilding. At the Mr. Olympia, they have so many classes. They have, the open, the women's physique, the women's wellness, the bikini. There's like another one. Like, do you think there's too many? Is
Yes,
it all
it's not. It's
necessary?
no. That's why Arnold cut out so many. I mean, it's ridiculous. Now, the only thing with Arnold is I would have kept women's bodybuilding because it's a bodybuilding show,
Right.
right? I wouldn't have cut out women's body.
Why did he take that one out?
I think it was a business decision. I think knowing that that's not going to draw eyes. That's my personal opinion. I mean, that's probably what happened, and you kind of can't blame him for it. At the end of the day, it is a business. I
So
get it.
why doesn't it draw eyes? I mean, that is like the ultimate limit of pushing the
Yes.
body.
Yeah. Yeah.
So why
But
does that not?
I think majority of guys don't find it attractive. And I think the majority of girls don't want to look like that. So that's why you see so many girls doing bikini and figure, and now it's this wellness and so on and so forth. And then I think you have guys that I want to see the beautiful women on stage, and I think you have girls that want to look like that. And I think sponsors are going to easily give you a sponsor if you're a bikini girl more so than a bodybuilder girl, because if a bikini girl is standing there holding a bottle of vitamins going, buy these and you look like me, the
Mhm.
girls are going to buy them. If you see, unfortunately, if Iris Kyle is holding a bottle of vitamins, she's probably girls aren't going to buy it because like I don't want to look like you.
Mhm.
And that's
But
that's
when you
just
say bodybuilding, I'm thinking like who's putting in the most effort and
that's
work,
right. And
time,
it's women's body 100%.
yeah.
But it's is it unfair? Yes, but that's life. And I think the only my opinion, the only way to draw eyes is to start drama. I mean, it's really honestly, I mean, it's just
There's a little bit of drama. Like they do talk about, some rivalries sometimes, like number one and number two of the women, like at Mr. Olympia, I noticed like this year I won it, next year the other one won it, and they're gonna battle. And they try to create those types of things.
yeah, it's got to be more about it's got to be more personal, right? Like it's got like
Get more
even
into
if
the
it's
character study.
even if it's fake. They have a podcast where Linda Murray's on every. I think Linda Murray is an absolute. The woman is
It still
gets
looks
better.
amazing today.
She gets better with age. The woman is absolutely gorgeous,
Mhm.
right? And I've always thought so. And it's unbelievable. I've had her on my show. She's like Angela Bassett, right? She just gets better with age. It's unbelievable. And they have a podcast, and not too many people watch it. It's not as popular. But I guarantee you that if you had, the number 2 girl and the number 1 girl from the Olympia on, and they got into a cat fight, right? Or threw something at each other, or whatever the case may be, I guarantee you
Mhm.
that views are going to go up.
Right.
I guarantee you. But I
We
don't
saw
just
that with women's basketball, the women's
right,
basketball with
right, right,
Caitlin Clark and Angel Reese and all of that.
right. Yeah,
Mhm.
exactly. And I guarantee, but that's not their makeup. But I think I guarantee it. I guarantee if like Marvelous Margie comes on, and
Mhm.
who's the women's Miss Olympia now? I actually interviewed her,
Andrea
uh,
Shaw?
Andrea Shaw, and I guarantee you if Margie goes on there and says to Andrea Shaw, you're not going to have a chance this year because the package I'm bringing, it's not even going to be close. I'm going to smoke you. You're never going to come on stage again. You're going to be embarrassed to be on there. I guarantee you people are going to start watching and
Mhm.
listening,
Maybe
but
move on to it.
that's, yeah, they don't do that. So it is what it is.
Yep, yep. So let me ask you, what do you think the future holds for bodybuilding? If you had like a crystal ball and you're thinking about how competitions are going and how the bodybuilding world's going to be maybe 5, 10, 20 years from now.
I think it's going to do what it's always done, and that is slowly grow. It's always going to be a niche sport. It's always going to be a sport people are afraid to get into because of the drug use, right? Uh, uh, and
Although I'll push back on that. It seems like it's becoming so commonplace, talked about online that
it
it's not
is,
as
but it's not going to be mainstream. You're never going to have Nike sponsor
okay,
bodybuilding, right?
right.
You might have, whatever supplement company, Redcon, but you're never going to have Reebok or Nike. They're never going to put themselves in that position. So it's always going to be a slow part. But yes, you're right. People talk about it openly more now than ever, which is probably a good thing, right? Because it's not going away. So you might as well educate people on it, which I fully believe. Because if you're in bodybuilding, you're gonna wind up being at least interested in what it is.
Be informed.
But yeah, be informed. But I honestly think that it's going to be um, just a slow progress, and I think it's just going to be chipping away, chipping away. And it's always going to be a niche sport. It's always going to be a very selfish, self-centered sport. Uh, and I think
Well, a
it's
lot of
I think
sports are. People are focused on their football, focused on their basketball. Like you
yeah,
have
but it's extra bodybuilding.
it's 24/7.
It's 24/7.
Yeah.
If you're a football player and you have a hard workout, you can go to dinner with your wife that night,
Mhm.
and you can have a drink, you can relax, where bodybuilders can't do that,
Mhm. That's true.
and the same thing with the women. The women, it's just, and I'm not even talking about bodybuilding, like just the women that are in fitness in general.
Mhm.
So you're either a selfish person that goes into the sport, or the sport makes you selfish,
Mhm.
because there's no other way around it.
Mhm.
Look, if I'm dating a girl that competes, right? And I come from a very traditional background, right? So when I'm, very nuclear family, a typical Italian, every weekend, blah, 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 that kind of thing. If I'm dating a girl that is a fitness competitor or a figure competitor, and I say, we got to go to my mother's this weekend. It's Mother's Day. She's cooking, blah, blah. And she goes, no, I can't. I got to go to the gym. I can't eat that stuff. I got to go to posing class. I got to tan. I got to blah, blah, blah. That's what it takes. And that's what's going to happen.
Mhm.
So you're going to be sacrificing, whether you know it or not. Whether you realize it or not, you're going to be sacrificing.
But
And it
like
becomes,
looking down the road, like we've come out with appetite suppressant injections like Ozempic that, people
yeah,
are using, bikini girls are using because they only drop weight really quick. They can do it pretty fast now.
yeah.
So there's going to be new modalities being developed that we aren't even aware of. That's going to
It's
make it
not even, it's
easier.
absolutely, yeah. It's
Yeah.
never going to stop. It's always going to be more and more drugs coming out. And that was like, there were 3 major reasons why I stopped bodybuilding. The number one reason was I knew I didn't have what it took as far as physically. But the second reason was the last show I did. I did the most drugs, the most anabolics I've ever did in my life. And then I won the Masters. So I was thinking about doing the Masters Nationals or Team Universe. And then I went to see two other coaches and they told me I had to do more. And I was like, I'm not doing any more. I'm not injecting myself in anymore. I'm not taking anymore. Forget it. You
Mm.
know? And the other reason was I just didn't want to be a selfish person anymore. I did not want to ignore my wife. I didn't want to ignore my family, my friends, work was suffering, so on and so forth. And so those three reasons combined, I knew that I didn't want to do it. But the drugs are always going to, as long as there's going to be a market for it, they're always going to try new things, and there's always going to be new stuff coming out. Like you said, the Ozempic. Now there's other
Shortcuts.
ones. Yeah, it's always. And it's unfortunate, but that's what bodybuilding is. And I just, you just hope that the people that use it are responsible and go get their blood work done and go and go, make sure that they're healthy before using it, or at least talk to people that know what they're doing, or at the very least, like they have test kits for anabolic steroids now. They're legal, you could buy, and you could test the stuff to see if it's real or not. At least do that.
It'll be interesting to see because I think it's just kind of in our DNA to push the limits,
Oh, 100, absolutely.
and that's going to continue. And are we going to see 400 pounds one day, something crazy like that, cartoonish.
Can I ask you a question?
Mm-hmm.
How did you get into bodybuilding?
So this is funny. I knew it existed, and obviously I'm part of the same generation. I love the action heroes, the wrestling, I grew up with all of that stuff. But during the pandemic, I was bored at home and I got on YouTube and I was watching Valuetainment, and I saw an interview with Sean Ray, and it was really interesting. He's very articulate. He had a lot of background information, and then he got into some kind of drama, and I kind of piqued my interest. And then I was like, oh, well, let me go watch this video on Chad Nichols. And then I heard his side, and then I started to learn the different players. Like then there was one on Dorian and one on Ronnie Coleman and Flex. And I just started to learn. And I was like, this is really fascinating. And then I was like, I'm going to go to the Mr. Olympia. So then I went to the Mr. Olympia.
Which one did you go to?
I went to the one in 2020. My first one was in 2022 in Vegas. And it was really weird setup. Like the show was at Planet Hollywood, but the expo was at the Bellagio, the Venetian. And so you had to go back and forth, but it was a circus and I loved it. I just loved it. And I just thought it was so cool. I saw these players online and learning about their history. Now I'm taking a picture with them and I'm talking to them, and just, I like that it's still small and it is a niche, because it, can get so big, you'd never do that with like a Michael Jordan or whatever, but
right.
I don't know. And then I just wanted to learn more about it. It's not that I ever wanted to compete or anything like that. I just really enjoyed, just kind of enjoyed the world. There's lots of
It's a fascinating world. It's a fascinating world. Yeah. And by the way, I love Valuetainment. I almost don't miss it. It's my favorite podcast.
He
doesn't really do interviews much anymore, but he does more of the politics and the news now and whatnot. But I still watch him. I admire that guy so much, because when you hear his story about how he came here with nothing,
right,
and now he's a multi-millionaire. His parents were immigrants from Iran, and now he's a multi-millionaire.
And he's got a comedian on the show. I forget what his name is.
Vinny.
I love Vinny. He's probably my favorite one on there. He's got
everybody loves Vinny and everybody hates Adam.
Right. It's a personality thing.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, no, it's great. It's a great show.
Very cool. Well, I have a couple more questions.
Yeah, go right ahead, please.
I was going to ask you, kind of like, who would be like your top bodybuilders of all time and why?
Okay. Number one, Ronnie Coleman. There's just nobody going to be. Ronnie Coleman is the Muhammad Ali of bodybuilding, the Michael Jordan of bodybuilding. He would have been a champion in any era. No ifs, ands, or buts.
Even today, he would be.
Even today, absolutely, he would. The other guys in the top five, no. Like, I don't think Sean Ray or Flex or Lee Priest would be able to beat a Derek or a.
How about Ronnie Coleman versus Phil Heath?
That's a rough one. I would still go with Ronnie Coleman, but that's a rough one. Phil Heath probably has the greatest rear double bicep pose ever. Period. Ever. But Ronnie's just freakish size. You can't deny him that. That's a tough one. I would still go with Ronnie.
Mhm.
So my number two would be Arnold because of what he'd done for the first of all, for his time, he was the greatest. And then what he did for the sport. I mean, what the guy does for the sport is just next to none, right?
Mhm.
I put Phil Heath in at number three. I put Lee Haney at number four, and I put Dorian Yates at number five.
Oh, wow. So you put Lee Haney over Dorian.
Yes, yes. I think Lee Haney's first of all, has more Olympias. I think Lee Haney has more pleasing physique.
Aesthetics.
Yeah, much more pleasing. And I think Dorian, even though he was a mass monster, like the fact that he won six and Lee Haney won eight it has to weigh in, right?
Mhm.
It has to kind of weigh in all things. Now, you could argue this all day long, but that's my top five ever.
Mhm. Yeah, I saw a video about Lee Haney. They used to weigh them right before the show back in the
Mm,
80s. And I thought, oh, that's so interesting. Now we don't weigh them. Do you
right.
know why they stopped weighing them?
I know. Well, during Lee Haney, no. I know that there was a point where you had to be, it was the over 200, under 200. I think once you just, there's really no reason to weigh the open.
I think it might have just been for show because, like,
Probably, yeah.
boxing and let's make a little, like,
It-
spectacle
yeah,
movie
there's no reason,
thing.
there's no weight. They don't have to meet a weight criteria. So
Right.
I don't think anything like that. They try to do the what is it, the press conference beforehand. They kind of ruined it last year where they just had the guys on stage instead
Mhm.
of everybody on a press conference thing. But yeah, that would be my top five. I mean, people will argue it all day long, but that's
Yeah.
my solid top five right there.
At what age do you age out? You think at the
For
elite
men,
level?
men, generally speaking, for men is probably around 40. Generally. I mean, don't get me wrong. Yeah, freaks and it's like my friend Phil Clayhar is 50. He did his first Olympia last year at 49. He's a
Okay.
freak.
Oh yeah, Dexter Jackson.
Dexter too. Dexter. There's not too many of those guys. And don't get me wrong. I mean, with time and science and whatnot, you have guys over 40 still doing it. But 40s really seems to be that breaking point,
Mhm.
right? Your mid to late 30s seems to be your real peak. You
Right,
know.
right. So
You
it's
know.
not too many that'll be like in their 20s because they haven't peaked yet to
Yeah.
reach
No.
the top.
Yeah.
So
No. You know.
Derek Lunsford is really kind of an anomaly.
No, he's a special bodybuilder. That's why I think he's going to be so dominant. So is Nick Walker, right? I think those guys. I think for a long time you're going to see Derek and Nick on the top five in the Olympia battling out for a very long time because these guys are really young, and the development of their muscle is insane, and they're only going to get better because they're so young. And then inevitably, like happens to every athlete, they will peak and then have a downside. It's inevitable. It's the life of an athlete. You will see Derek lose. You will see people talk about how great Derek was. Same thing with Nick. Same thing with Samson. It's inevitable. It's the life of an athlete. And then they will go on to their next phase of life or whatever it is.
Right, right. And I mean, they're living in a very advantaged time because they'll just continue their career and make money off their supplements and their
Absolutely.
businesses and so forth. Just
Yeah.
for that moment on stage has allowed them, 3 decades of a career in bodybuilding, like we see with
I
with some of
I
our.
interviewed Jay Cutler, and the first half of the show was about business. The
Mhm.
second half was about bodybuilding, right? And he basically told me when it comes to bodybuilding or the fitness world, no matter what name I put on, no matter what I put my name on, rather, he makes money. It's when he steps outside that world that he takes a chance because
Mhm.
he's such a brand in the bodybuilding world, and that's what these guys, like a Derek or like a Nick, that's what their brand is so heavy. And they have such a huge following that they get put their name on anything, and it's gonna take off. And
Mhm.
and that's great, and that's good for them, right? But then you
Mhm.
have the majority of bodybuilders or athletes or whatnot that don't have that ability, right? But for the most part, yeah, they're going to, Derek and Nick and Samson and these guys and they're hottie. They are going to be, if they are smart, they will never have a financial problem in their life.
Right, right. Just got, like you said, they need to be PR smart, don't burn bridges, play the politics, all of the things,
That's
you know.
it.
Yep, for sure.
But at the same time, don't be you have to know when to keep your mouth shut and you have to know when to speak out,
Right.
right? I mean, Lee Priest probably did it a little too early in his career. right? I admire him
Yeah.
for speaking his mind and speaking out for the athletes. I admire him greatly for that. I
Yes.
admire him for always, always giving his true opinion.
Mhm.
Right? Did it hurt him financially? Yeah, but I don't think he would have really. I don't think he really suffered too bad financially from it because he was such a draw. People wanted to meet him and talk to him, and everybody wanted him around, and so on and so forth. But I mean, just so you know, my opinion of Lee Priest as a bodybuilder, and this is going to be a little, is I think he's very overrated.
Why is that? What do you mean? Why?
Well, he always had a problem with his conditioning. He
Yeah.
always had a problem. He always, if you look at pictures of his when he always had a problem bringing in his glutes and his hamstrings. There were times where his legs weren't as separated. In a time where these guys, conditioning meant a lot. He was going up against guys like Sean Ray and
Mhm.
and Flex Wheeler, and it is my opinion that Lee Priest, his genetics was so great that he was able to be on that stage with the best.
Mhm.
Um, uh, and he used to get so overweight on his off season,
Yeah.
so overweight. He used to really let himself go. And I know I watched the interview you did with him, and he said that would really inspire him to lose the weight. But that's just the wrong way to go about it. Majority of people really have to kind of stay somewhat in shape. I mean, you want to get bigger, but you don't want to get sloppy. And he used to
Right.
get sloppy. And I really believe that he was so genetically gifted that he could just, you
Yeah.
know,
It's
the more I got into bodybuilding, the more I started being a fan of the guys that really had to kill themselves to get there. The Branch Warrens, the Johnny Jacksons. Um, I'll throw Kai Green in there, like Phil Clayhar, like my friend Phil.
Mhm.
The guys that really had to have to kill themselves because they don't have those great genetics. Dorian Yates is another good example. He had good genetics, but the work ethic that he had, Ronnie Coleman was a combination of both, right? But the guys that really kill themselves to get there, I've become more of a fan of than the guys that can just do it,
Mhm. So
right?
somebody like a Branch Warren who, I mean, I wouldn't think has the genetics, or does he have the genetics? The fact that he could put on the muscles, like,
He has, yeah, he has. Look, he has good enough genetics, and then his work ethic takes over.
okay.
And then there are people that have incredible less than 1% genetics, like a Lee Priest,
Mhm.
that could just put in some of the work and it's done for them. And
Mhm.
then that's great. Don't get me wrong. That's great. But it is my opinion that guys like uh, there are a lot of guys that if they would have put more work in, they probably would have been the best in the world or top in the world.
Mhm.
But a lot of times people become, content
Mhm.
with where they are in a spot. They become financially content. They become just a very stable in life, and they're like, I really don't have to kill myself anymore. I think there was a fighter named Marvin Hagler, and he said it's easier to to wake up from the projects and go jogging at 5 a.m. than out of silk sheets. And I think the same thing happens with these elite bodybuilders. I think a lot of times they get to a point and they go, I'm making money. I'm breaking the top 5 or the top 10. Well, okay, we're good.
Mhm.
I don't think it's any different than any other sport like that.
Yep, yep. Very good. Well, we're getting here toward the end, and I was just going to see if you have any like final thoughts on anything we discussed today, anything on bodybuilding, your show, your YouTube channel that you want to share with the audience.
Well, I think everybody on planet Earth should go to my YouTube channel and
Yes.
subscribe, all
Yes.
8 billion people.
I'll put it down in the description box so you guys can link on over there.
And Serious and Silliness Bodybuilding. And I think I also have a second channel called Serious and Silliness Outcasts, but this is for bodybuilding. So Serious and Silliness Bodybuilding. It's only about a year and a half old, but I put out a lot of really great content. And I enjoy your content as well. I really do.
Thank you. Thank you.
I
I
enjoy
appreciate
your absolutely 100%. And it was truly an honor and a privilege to be on your show. I don't think I'll ever get used to the fact that somebody wants to interview me
it. It's
because
weird, right?
Because I'm a sewer worker in New York that I just started a podcast because I wanted to, and now people want to talk to me, and I'm like, wow, this is fantastic.
Yes, yes. You gotta see if you can interview the Dirty Jobs guy, Mike Rowe. Try
Yeah,
to get him on your show.
he's a little rough to get on.
Yeah, yeah.
It becomes a little tough getting these people on, but I'll listen. I'll give it a shot.
Yeah, send an email. You never know.
Yeah, really. Well, Lisa, thank you very much. I appreciate it.
Thank you, John. I appreciate it. And if you guys like this video, be sure to give it a thumbs up, leave a comment down below, and don't forget to subscribe. Thanks for watching.
All right, Lisa, have a good day.
Thanks.